Chapter 23. The Skylift.
Nebulon's disguise was similar to when Zack had first been taken in by it at the Tarkton restaurant. The likable tramp. Zack shook his hand and introduced him to Venrue and Zentran. The old man looked at the attractive girl, something like a cat looking at a queen. Zentran knew there was more to it than that. Nebulon turned to Zentran with some concern. He taught Zack how to put up a mental screen, which had been passed on to Zentran. Nebulon was a master at screening, but as his eyes met Zentran's, he realized that Zentran had acquired the skill fully. He could read nothing through Zentran's screen. Further, Nebulon knew that being the originator was of no consequence. Screen or no screen, Zentran could see straight through him. He winced. Never before had he encountered such volume of mental energy. It emanated from Zentran effortlessly, who at that moment knew everything he knew. Personal information Nebulon had held dear and kept hidden for more time than he cared to remember was laid bare. Zentran wondered in turn how Nebulon would react to the horror he'd unfolded from the Council's central computer. Nebulon would have to be told, but the time still wasn't right. Thankfully, Nebulon couldn't see through his screen. The weight of the knowledge he'd chosen to bear alone was safe with him for now. A more pleasant subject was in the offing. Zentran had suspected Nebulon's guarded secret for some time. Now he had confirmation. The old man badly needed to tell them, but had no idea how to broach the subject. It became Zentran's privilege to make it known. He placed an affectionate hand on Nebulon's shoulder and turned to Venrue.
This is your father, Venrue.
The smile on Zentran's face didn't dispel her disbelief. She felt numb for a moment. Through her daze, she heard Zentran's words replay in her mind.
This is your father, Venrue.
She looked at the old man and saw a tramp. He smiled at her awkwardly. She looked into his eyes and recognized the wonder there. This was the same person she had shared the skylift with as a child.
Dad?
Yes, my girl, it's me.
There were melodies in her mind now, soft and beautiful. Tears welled in her green eyes. Her olive skin trembled, and she threw back her long black hair as she embraced the tramp.
Hello, Venrue.
Was all the old man could manage. A large lump rose in his throat as his daughter held him close.
Where did you go?
I've never been far away. I've always been near enough to make sure you were okay.
In the old man's eyes, moisture rose and unashamedly found their way down his soiled face. They left clean streaks and dripped from his chin onto the skylift floor. Arm in arm they turned as the skylift cleared the ground shaft and rose against the mountain's sheer face. The magnificence of the view they'd shared so many sun revolutions before was a joyous reminder of their happiness when they'd last witnessed it. Venrue reached out to touch the lift's transparent force field boundary to make sure the moment was real. But for the safety screen, they could have felt the texture of the rock face as the skylift rose against it. The lift's transparent base revealed the valley floor below them. High above the lift's rounded roof, the mountain summit grew in size as they approached it. The view across the mountainous terrain was breathtaking. There were no unsightly mounds of mine waste from the planet's innards here. The moon had its backdrop of stars in the purple velvet sky, just as Venrue remembered it. She laughed.
The sun's in its hiding place.
Nebulon remembered the story he told his little girl.
Although Delta 5 doesn't have the tallest mountains in the Confederation, this one still has ample place for the sun to hide behind.
Neither Zentran or Zack spoke. To do so would have drawn attention away from a moment that belonged to a father and daughter. Zack was also so stunned that he would not have known what to say anyway.
Where were you all the sun revolutions when I was growing up?
I was always close by, but just far enough away not to draw attention to you through myself. We live in dangerous times. I could not let the threat of the Council's ever-increasing arrests affect your upbringing.
Zentran sensed a large disturbance in the thought field below them. In an instant, he knew they'd been detected. The surprise of Nebulon and Venrue's relationship still held Zack's attention.
Why didn't you tell me?
Zack inquired of Zentran.
I wasn't sure till a few moments ago. Now is the right time for you and Venrue to know.
What else are you keeping from us?
No time for that. We have problems below.
Zack sensed the disturbance. The situation beneath them was escalating into a serious predicament. The three men knew to keep their mental activity to a minimum, but collectively they triggered a sensor. Although Venrue didn't share their mental prowess, the aesthetics she could transmit may have contributed in her moment of joy. Nebulon noticed the disturbance in the realm, but said nothing. Lookalikes below had sensed enough mental activity in the skylift to alert the system. Reinforcements were en route in response to their microwave transmissions. An army of them approached the skylift entry hall from all directions. The skylift hadn't reached the mountain's peak yet when they felt it slow and stop. Venrue frowned and looked at the three men whose faces said nothing. She didn't need telepathic ability to know something was amiss.
They're onto us, aren't they?
Afraid so, my girl.
Nebulon considered for a while and voiced a thought.
If we can make it to the valley behind the mountain, I have a star cruiser hidden there that can jump light speed. We can lose them.
How will we get to it, Dad? There's no air outside.
Same way I got from it, with pressure suits.
They felt the skylift shudder. The operator was trying to get the drive to change direction and bring them down. Zack had an idea. He turned to Nebulon.
When the lift stops down below, Zentran and I can mentally blast the door open before it opens normally. It'll take them by surprise. Zentran and I can go out in front and detonate our way through the lookalikes as you and Venrue follow. They have no idea how strong we are. There will be so many of them burnt out that the confusion will give us a chance to take the underground route to where you came in. We can get to your star cruiser that way.
Zentran shuddered. He didn't want to contradict Zack in front of Nebulon, who might someday be, if they got out of this mess, Zack's father-in-law.
Do you have the pressure suits with you, sir?
He asked Nebulon. The lift started to move down.
Yes, I have them here in micropacks.
He pulled one out from his inside pocket.
Good.
Zentran considered using his energy to raise the lift off the drive rails with them in it. He decided against it. Its unreality would disturb Venrue, and to some degree Nebulon's grip on what was real. Nebulon's power was that of a telepath, and moving himself spiritually out of his body. to move matter mentally required greater force. The kind of energy Zentran and Zack could command had not been known in this sector for eons. Zentran knew Zack's plan was workable. They could pull it off. But what of all the lookalikes they'd destroy? And innocent bystanders that were in the wrong place? Further, their faces would be known. Zack felt nothing for lookalikes. He'd never quite understood Zentran's concern for them. To him, they were just the enemy, and justifiably disposable. Zentran, he thought, was just a bit odd and interested in all sorts of pointless things. Zack had to admit, though, that innocent bystanders and a life on the run were worthy of concern. Zentran exteriorized from his body and below the surface of the ground entered the skylift control room. 5 lookalikes were in command of it. Zentran reversed the polarity of the motor. The lift jerked as it again changed direction, resuming its ascent to the top of the mountain. Technicians frantically tried to change the lift's direction again, switching the lever backwards and forwards to no avail. Zentran held the circuit in place. Lookalikes felt his power. Their sensors had never picked up anything like it and appeared to be malfunctioning. In the lift, they all put on pressure suits. Zack looked at Venrue. Even in a pressure suit, she looked stunning. The lift reached the peak, affording an uncanny view. A splendor of purple sky, with the moon and stars, and the valley below looked too perfect, almost planned. Numerous mountains, with pointed peaks, lined a valley winding between them. They took little notice of that now. Back in the control room, Zentran melted down the system completely. It would take considerable time to repair the burnt-out circuitry, and still more to get the lift down. Lookalikes gazed at the resultant molten mess. Somehow in their automation, disbelief was evident. Zack mentally pried the lock of the skylift door open, and the 4 climbed out onto a disused platform. The lift door fell closed behind them, hardly making a sound in the near-zero atmosphere. Without the protection of the lift's insulation, latent sun radiation glowed in the approaching darkness. It brought an exaggerated contrast of brilliance and shadow to their vision. What should have been swelteringly hot was actually cold with the lack of air. Their insulated pressure suits, though, made it difficult to assess the outside temperature. The back of the mountain sloped gently down to the valley. It was going to be a long walk.